All right. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing well on this Thursday. I'm Nick. I'm an account executive here at 36pix, and today we'll be covering yesterday's myths as well as today's realities when it comes to green screen, when it comes to extractions and chroma keying. So for the duration of the webinar, everybody's going to be muted. This is just so we can make sure that the presentation goes smoothly. If ever you do have a question during the webinar, you can easily just chat it into your chat box on the GoToMeeting application. I'll make sure to go back to it and cover it when I get to the question period at the end of the webinar. We'll kind of cover the little agenda here, what we're going to be learning and what we're going to be talking about on this webinar. First, we'll cover the history and the rise of green screen throughout different industries. We'll also kind of look at what came before green screening and what came before chroma keying, and how we got here today. We'll also explore commonly held myths in the green screen industry and how 36pix's technology debunks them, how they are not realities today anymore. We'll also take a look at the benefits of using green screen in your businesses today, and as well as we'll kind of take a look at the future of green screen and what's coming around the corner on that end. So first off, I'd like to define what chroma keying is. Chroma keying is what we use here at 36pix to do our extractions. If we look at the dictionary definition of chroma keying, we get a digital technique by which a block of particular color, often blue or green, in film or in an image can be replaced by another color or image. So basically what we're talking about here is separating the foreground and the background so that we can put in a different background in the back, and that's what we do here. First little fun fact I'd kind of like to cover here is that chroma keying didn't actually make its way into the lexicon until about 1974. The reason being is that chroma keying wasn't around before 1974, or at least wasn't around in those years. But before that, there was other attempts at doing extractions, doing composites, and that's kind of what we're going to look at here in the history, what came before chroma keying and the extractions that we now see in the photography world. So what did people do before chroma keying? Before chroma keying, people still worked with extractions. It all began in the film industry. We had icons such as Walt Disney who wanted to mix the real world with the animated world, and we had also other filmmakers and movie makers who just wanted to create sets that maybe were not possible in their budgets or were just not possible with the technologies they had now. So they tried to do some work with composite images to create these really nice movies. And that's where we're going to start here with our history of chroma keying. So the first technique that was used was the black matte. And I'm just going to start this little video here so you guys can have a visual image to look at. The idea behind the black matte was to use blacked out portions of the camera and multiple exposures to bring two scenes together. I'll kind of explain this a little better here. So if you look at this image here, the way they would have done this is you have the actors playing the scene here in the foreground, and they actually added another image here or another film to composite two images together to get this shot. So the way they would do it is they would put a glass pane in front of the camera and black out this area here so no light could go into the camera and be exposed. So you would have the first shot here, and then they would shoot the second scene with the same plane of glass in front, but the opposite blacked out. So they would then black out this area and only expose this window where they would then film the train, and they could bring the two images together. So that was kind of the first attempts at composites as well as extractions. And this example we're looking at here is actually from the Great Train Robbery, so in 1903. So these techniques were used a long time ago. They weren't the greatest, but they did the trick and they got some good results out of it. One issue with this technique, is that the camera always had to stay steady. You could not move your camera, and it wasn't exactly perfect for filming films. Another issue was that you couldn't have any interactions between the actors and the matted region in the film. So what they wanted to develop is the traveling matte, so they could actually make characters move around. And that's what we're going to look at here. So in 1918, Frank Williams patented the traveling matte technique. The idea here was similar, but they had to find a new way to create these matted areas. So what they did is they would shoot their actors on a black screen, as seen here, and then they would copy the image multiple times at higher contrast until they had a nice matte here. When I'm saying mattes, that could be exchanged with what we are now saying as masks. So matte and mask are interchangeable as words here. Once they had this matte here, they were able to use another image shot, add the matte to it, and then they would composite the two images together and create this nice scene we have here. Again, there was some technical difficulties with this process as well. Whenever you had the shadows coming in with the mattes, it would not give the desired result. So they had to figure out something else. And what they actually figured out is something that was a little closer to what we now do with chroma keying. And that was working with blue lights and yellow lights. So when they were still using black and white film, they were able to use blue lights and shine it onto the background, and then use yellow lights and shine it onto the foreground, and then they were able to create masks or mattes using different prisms and filters, and then they could then use those mattes in the same way they were using the traveling mattes to create the composite images. Now these techniques were not able to be used on colored film. So what they were able to do with colored film, now that it was being shot on digital cameras, they were able to actually use a blue screen and separate the different color channels. So same kind of idea, but now they were using the color channels in digital film to do the separation of the mattes. Certain famous fields that use this, this technology and these techniques and that were very successful at doing so were the Thief of Baghdad, who actually won an Academy Award for Best Special Effects using the technique. Other notable films were King Kong and the Ten Commandments. If you actually look back at clips of the Ten Commandments and these other movies now, you'll notice that it's not the greatest extraction. You have some heavy blue outlines. They were present in the films, but since the technology was so revolutionary back then, they just cut their losses and were happy with the result. But they had to figure out a way to deal with that. I'm also going to talk a little bit at how blue screen transitioned to green screen. The technology that's required for blue screen and green screen is identical. It is chroma keying. But there were three major factors that led people to start using green over blue. The first being that green extractions require less light. So this was very useful for filmmakers or photographers who were shooting outside or shooting in situations where lighting was a little more challenging. The green wavelengths on the color scheme are also easier to pick up for electronic circuits. This permitted for better cutouts and better precision while doing extractions. And also, obviously, green is less common in clothing. The main reason green screen became so mainstream was actually because of TV networks and their struggle to deal with their broadcasters wearing blue suits or blue dresses, and the troubles they were having extracting these images. So what they decided to do is just switch over to the green screen. The movie industry actually kind of carried on using the blue screen for a little while more after that. But once they realized the three main advantages here of requiring less light, that the green is brighter to electronic circuits, and as well as that green is less common in clothing, they quickly switched over to the green screen. And now most of the big movies you watch that are blockbusters, such as Star Wars, Harry Potter, or even TV series such as Game of Thrones, are shot on green screen. Now, how did green screen find its way into the photo industry? That's what we're going to talk about here, and this is really where 36 pix came in. So we had, with the invention of digital photography and digital films, the opportunity to work with the color channels. But the technology that was out there for the movie industry wasn't exactly quite right for the photography industry. And the main reason being that when you print a photo compared to working with films, you need way more higher resolution and details matter, as most of you know here. So what our challenge was to use the technology that was available for the film industry on green screen and develop an algorithm that would fit the needs of the photography industry. And that's where we came up with our algorithm, ChromaStar. And we found an opportunity to bridge the gap between film and photography. Now, while green screen technology was being adopted in the photography industry, obviously the technology was not the greatest right off the bat. Now we have really good technology, but there were some learning curves or some learning pains. And during those learning pains, there were certain myths that took the opportunity to squeeze in there and kind of rise up. And we often still hear these myths today. And I kind of want to just address them so that we can debunk them and kind of clarify how they do not apply to our technology now. nowadays. So the first one I kind of like to look at is the myth that green on green is difficult to extract. To kind of showcase this, I'm going to show you how our algorithms handle green on green images. In reality, here at 36 Pix, the way our technology works is we really target in on green pixels and remove them all. So anybody that's not wearing a green shirt or is not holding a green prop will be extracted automatically. That means that about 85% of the images you work with or we work with, we don't even have to touch them. They're just extracted automatically, as I said. Now the images where individuals are wearing green or they're holding green props, those ones we have to go in and do some minor modifications. So I'm going to start this little video and we're going to show you how we handle all this in here. So as I said, what we're going to see here is all the images where nobody's wearing green, they'll be done automatically. The people who are wearing green, the green screens are extracted, but at the same time, the green in the shirt is as well. And that's what we want to try to avoid here. So what our system does is it comes in and it creates a foreground mask, very similar to the way the movies were doing it earlier. And it brings back all the green that should be in the foreground. Now sometimes the border isn't exactly perfect, so you have to do certain modifications to add the green that should be there and remove green that shouldn't be there. Now this first example here is actually perfect. The mask did a great job at finding the foreground and the background and brought back the green where it should be, and where it shouldn't be, it removed it. So this mask would be good to go and we could just carry on. So here we're just saving it and moving on to the next image. So here the mask did a really good job. It found the green on the foreground, removed the one on the background, but we still have a bit of green left in the hair here. So all we would do is just come in with our simple tool, most likely the brush here, and just clean out the green we wouldn't need. And again here, one final example, green on green. The mask did a really good job, or we could say matte as well, did a really good job at finding the border between the foreground and the background, and we just cleaned up a bit of green that was left in the hair. So all this just to say that dealing with green on green images is not difficult anymore. The second myth I'd kind of like to bring up here is that your setup has to be perfect when working with green screen. Obviously there are some advantages to using a good green screen setup, but it's really not the way it was in the old days where you had to make sure that your setup was perfect. I even heard stories of people saying that they had to overexpose the background just to make sure that they had a clean knockout. That's not the case anymore. Here at 36 Pix, we're able to handle many different shades of green, whether it be light green or even darker green. You can see down here that it extracts very well, depending, no matter what the shade. Also, we all know that sometimes when you set up your setups or you're preparing a photo shoot, some little things can go off. So sometimes you have little wrinkles, little shadows during the shoot. Our algorithms were built with these little wrinkles and little shadows in mind. So if ever you do have a wrinkle or a shadow coming through, those will be taken care of by the algorithms. Now, if ever you do have a heavier shadow coming through on your background, we also have tools within the application where you can clean those up and with no issues. The third myth I'd like to cover is that blonde hair and red hair is impossible to extract. With the blonde hair, often we have prospects or clients who kind of worry with the spill that goes into the blonde hair, and some softwares struggle with removing green from the red-haired pixels. With our application, that's no issue. With our technology, that's no issue. Like I was saying before, since we actually remove all green pixels, we have no issues at removing the green pixels that are near the hair or any spill that's within the blonde hair, and we also retain all details that are there. Since we're dealing with chroma keying and not cutouts like some other technologies do, we actually keep all detail retention on the hair. We don't go in there and cut in and try to figure out where the green is ending. We just remove all the pixels and retain all the details that should be there that make the image look natural and real. So now that we've kind of covered the history of where extractions and chroma keying came from, we kind of looked at the myths that arose during the transition period between the film use of green screen and the photography use of green screen. We'll kind of talk about green screen today and the benefits of using it in your business, and as well as what the future holds for green screen and kind of what the future holds for 36 Pix as well. So green screen today and the benefits. Green screen today is still used in the film industry, still used in the broadcasting industry, as well as the photography industry. We're also seeing it appear more in freelancers as well as advertising companies. According to some of our estimates, about 60% of school and sports photographers are now using green screen. Most of the use has come in the last 5 years. There's been a big trend on the use of green screen recently. The main benefits of using green screen in your company today is obviously increased sales, as well as the different products that you can bring to your clients, which can make their experience greater with your company and helps you retain these clients in the long term. As some of you might know, we actually have a photo studio here in Quebec called Green Apple, where we shoot about 350,000 kids each year. And one little example I'd like to bring from our business here is we had a school with about 350 kids. And when we did the school, we took the photos on green screen, and then when the parents purchased products later on, we actually had 165 unique backgrounds be picked within that school. Now, if we were shooting on traditional backgrounds, we would have never been able to offer that selection to the parents. So by shooting on green screen, we were able to really match their specific needs and what they wanted out of the product. Green screen also allows you to sell more images. I mean, this one is pretty intuitive. If we're shooting traditionally, maybe you bring 2-3 backgrounds, so you'll be able to offer 2-3 products to your client base. And now if you're shooting on green screen, the sky is the limit on what you can do with the backgrounds. You can put in any background, and it kind of brings into my next point as well. You can personalize backgrounds or maybe do trendy backgrounds as well. One example would be to maybe take the student's school and put it into the background, or use a drawing they did during that school year and put it into the background. So you can really have fun and create these nice customized products for your clients. Also, another big trend today in green screen are the virtual groups that are gaining popularity. They're gaining popularity in the sports, for sports photography as well as school photography. The idea there is you shoot your students on green screen, and then you can extract them and bring them together into a group. The advantages there is, let's say you have a student who misses the shooting day. You can still add them to the team picture, and you can really do these nice layouts that are more fun than the traditional group school photo. So what does 36pix offer today? We offer green screen, blue screen, as well as white screen solutions. I often get the question, what's kind of the better solution to use for me? And what I usually recommend is green screen, and the reason being is the edit ratio. So as I said, the way our technology works is we only deal with the images where individuals are wearing green, or to kind of broaden it, we're only dealing with the images of individuals wearing the same color as the background we're extracting. Now, when we're dealing with green images, the edit ratio, so the number of images we're actually going to be working on, is usually between 15 and 20%. When we're working with blue screen, it's usually 70%. So you're definitely working on way more images on that end there. So it's more labor intensive. And when you're working with white screen, then you're usually about at 100%. So definitely more work on that end. So I usually like to recommend shooting on green screen, as it is the most cost-effective and versatile option out there. And finally, the last little point I'd like to bring forward here, or actually here, I'm just going to cover some of our products here. As I was saying, we offer green, blue, and white background extractions, and that's really on our full service side. So that's extractions we do for you. Simply you send your images to us, we do the extractions, and we return them within 48 business hours. On the other side, on the high volume side, we also have our do-it-yourself application, where it's exactly the same platform we use here internally, or the same software we use here internally to do our extractions, but we make it available to you guys through the web to do your own extractions. All you need is a username, a password, you log in, and you do your extractions, and they come back down. The process is extremely fast. As I've mentioned before in this presentation, you're only dealing with the individuals who are wearing green or holding green props. And you could easily, on average, one tech could easily get through 7,000 images in one day. So very quick. We also just recently released a Photoshop plugin. It's called Key 36. It's kind of designed more for lower volume use. So great for anybody that's kind of a freelancer or the marketing agencies I was saying, but even for more high volume companies, it's good for quick fixes. If ever you had to put through 2-3 images, you just open up the Key 36 plugin in Photoshop and you do your extractions and send the product over or send the result over to whoever needs it. Now let's talk a little bit about the future of green screen at 36 pixels and also the future of green screen just in the industry here. So here at 36 pixels, we're extremely lucky to have a great development team on site. They're always working on the algorithm, making it better. When we released our first version of Chroma Star, the idea was not to just put it out there and be content with the way it's working. We always wanted to make it better. Actually, one thing I could share with you guys here, right now the algorithm we're using is called Chroma Star 2, and it's excellent. It's the algorithm that really put us ahead of everybody else when it comes to green screen extractions. But again, we were not content with just having that. Since then, we've been working on Chroma Star 3, which should actually be launching real soon, and that one is much better as well. We've also started doing some work with deep learning as well as AI. And the idea there is just to kind of use the technology to get better defined masks as well as greater results there. So the idea is to kind of identify patterns in how our algorithms are treating images and kind of for them to learn on how to make these masks sharper and more precise so that you have less labor to do, we have less labor to do, and the results are greater. And again, I kind of already spoke about our Key 36 Photoshop plugin, but one of our goals in the future is also to make green screen more accessible to everyone out there. So we'll have a couple more products coming out. As I said, we have the Key 36 Photoshop that was released. It was released on PC, and our Mac version should be coming shortly as well. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. As I said, it's recorded, so I can definitely give you a copy if you'd like. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you guys soon. Thank you.